for those of you who don't know, this is a podcast that we're launching called Merely Misunderstood, where we're going to tackle concepts. We're going to have conversations. We're even going to interview people who have either been misunderstood, have misunderstood people, or have like even in themselves misunderstood themselves. And it's always good to start kind of like, I guess, when you're starting your channel to talk about you. And I've been wrestling with some things that I felt like this was a good channel and a good time and a good space to kind of begin to share some of those things. So this weekend, I graduated.
Yay.
And what I would say was one of the complicated things about it was there were very much highs and lows in anticipation to graduating. I would tell you that I had every possible emotion I could think of: excitement, discouragement. I guess I would say I overprocessed some things, overthought some things. So giving you backstory, right? Like this is the degree that I have been pursuing for a while, and every possible life obstacle that I feel like within myself I could have faced, I faced it. We had a pandemic. We had, job changes. You know, relationships and marriage and just all of those things went through different challenges and changes that prolonged getting this degree. And I feel like while I should have been excited at the very beginning, I wasn't. I was like, I was down on myself in the sense of I should have been done this. And I guess the part that I feel like how it aligns with being misunderstood is sometimes we misunderstand seasons in our lives. And because we misunderstand the seasons in our lives, we get discouraged and we get frustrated even when we're standing in the middle of a blessing. You know, I could say that not just about my degree. Me and you have said this numerous of times to people with relation to our relationship. Like we would say, man, I wish we would have met each other sooner because of how dope and how cool, but just like the conversations, the vision, the things we want to see done. And I feel like, oh man, I wish we would have done this sooner. But the reality is, had we done it sooner, we might not have gotten what we got, right? We might would have not matured to the place that we've matured to that affords us the opportunity to have the relationship that we now share.
100%. You would have mishandled me. You would have
Negative.
fumbled the bag.
But I would say like that same thing is what I was processing this weekend. Like, I don't know if it would have meant as much as it means had I got it when I got it. And sometimes because you misunderstand the season you in, you miss the information. You miss the aha moment, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, we went back to the campus this weekend. Just really, I'm figuring I'm just there because I'm graduating, but also to show my wife where I went to school, and to show her where I ran from the geese. But that's another story for another time. And so I'm thinking that that's what we're there for. But while I'm there, like so much is being exposed to me in that moment. Like I remembered my why. And I think back then my why meant something different and it felt like something different than what it meant and felt like this weekend as I was processing it. What I saw this weekend was, one, I didn't quit.
Right.
But I also had the privilege of, we had this medaling service. And while sitting in the medaling service, a young man by the name of Samson spoke on behalf of the graduates at the medaling service. And one of the things that he said that just was like, I don't know, it might not be deep for nobody else, but it was what I needed to hear in the moment, was that he said, people don't understand that people who go to school online, we experience school in a totally different way. He said, and the reason is because people who go to school on campus, many of them can just put their attention on being on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
But most people who are going online are going online because life does not permit them the ability to go on campus. He said, so for many of us, we worked jobs, we developed and grew homes, we may have worked businesses, we were doing ministry, we had all of these things going on, and yet and still we made it to the finish line with this degree. Mm-hmm. And he said that right there tells us that we can do anything. And so for me, it was the aha of understanding I've created all of these excuses as to why I can't build all of the things I feel like God has called me to build. Well, I got a family. Well, I'm married. Well, I work a 9 to 5 and I'm an assistant pastor at a church. And so I got all of these dynamics going on. And the thing that was revealed or that I felt like I connected with was, but I can do all of those things. Mm-hmm. And I can do them all well when God has his hand on it. And so I think that you said it best in the text message today, and I don't know if I'm going to mess it up. Mm-hmm. So maybe you can say it about the expecting.
Oh, expecting the unexpected when expecting the unexpected. What to expect when expecting the unexpected.
And so, yeah. You silly. And so for me, I feel like there was all of this anticipation in this expectation that I had in my mind and in my head. Mm. Like even down to the degree, if I be honest, we've shot this podcast twice for sure. And really, to be honest, the reason why we haven't put nothing out is because I still hadn't shot the thing that I was like, that's the thing. Mm-hmm. Right? We shot it. We had really good conversation, but then the mics weren't even recording. And then, like, it's just been one obstacle or one scenario or situation after another. And I realized today, like, even in this, that when this is completed, I got to put it out.
Yeah. And I'm ready.
But I'm saying all that to say that this weekend was an awakening and awareness to understand that there are some things that I am in my own way of because I have these expectations and I'm not moving because I've allowed myself to develop fear based on my expectation. And then you get there and all of these things that you've worked yourself up about
don't matter.
They don't even exist
don't
sometimes.
Matter. Like all of the things, even when we were sitting here talking, I was like, Brian, what is on your mind? Like, what is going on? You're like, nothing. I was like, I know it's something. And so when I talk to you about those things, I'm like, look, it doesn't matter. You're a totally different person than you were then. And that's a good thing.
And it's crazy because like in this weekend situation, there are these things that you've judged yourself on that you get in front of people and they're like, I actually like that better about you now. Yeah. And you like this better? Yeah. And they're like, yeah, I like that better because, and they give these reasons. So all of these things that you've allowed to get into your mind to convince you not to do your thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what your thing is, but I know for me, my thing has been this, right? Mm-hmm. Developing a community and a space for people to talk about things that they've either misunderstood or felt misunderstood about. You know, it's kind of like in one of our first initial recordings, which we didn't get a chance to put out, right? We talked about like misunderstanding ourselves. And because we misunderstood ourselves, we not only mishandled ourselves, but we mishandled some people that came along the way in our lives. Mm-hmm. And some of it was because you know you, but there are so many facets of you that you think you know, but you really don't understand. Right? And so in those seasons, because you're not listening with an ear to understand you, you may say some things, you may do some things that came off wrong or came out wrong merely because you didn't understand the season you was in. You didn't understand the person that you were dealing with, or you didn't understand you. Right. You know, I think both of us can say that there are chapters in this book of a thing we call our lives well, we can say that we made some decisions that most people would judge based on their perspective. But without me giving context, you would merely misunderstand why I did that. Even in my immaturity or in my lack of understanding, I made some bad decisions, not because I was a bad person. I made some bad decisions because in that season, I didn't even understand me, and I didn't understand my purpose, and I didn't understand what God wanted from me. And so I was out there doing what I thought God wanted from me. I was out there making my own decisions and blazing my own way. And I think along the way, again, people get a perspective or a perception of you based on the things that they've seen you do.
I understand that. I had a thought was creeping past my mind when you were saying what you were saying. Um, Sometimes I feel like we're too hard on ourselves. Like we expect ourselves to be like that perfection the first time, and then we don't expect failure. But man, we still learning, and I believe that as we define our purpose, we change as individuals. So in that growth of it all, even though it feels like a misstep, it really isn't. It's teaching me, it's edifying me, it's sharpening me to the place where I can be whole in my purpose.
I agree with that 100%. Like, I feel like there are some places in my life where I wish I would have done things differently, but I only have the ability to have that perspective because I did it this way,
Yeah.
right?
Like they say hindsight is 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah, if I would have knew I wasn't supposed to be dating Freddie, I would have never talked to Freddie. If I would have
exactly.
knew, you know what I'm saying, I was gonna have all these children, I wouldn't be doing the things that I was doing.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like hindsight is 2020. But I believe even in those steps, or we think they're missteps, or we think like we didn't hear from God in this situation and we mishandled that situation, like it's a learning experience and it's okay to fail. Like people get so bent out of shape about failure, but in my failure I found the flaw and I found how to pursue this going forward. So if I take that whole scenario and okay, I say this was the flaw, or this was the misstep, but the whole thing wasn't for nothing.
I agree. But you know why the lesson sometimes is brutal in my life. I feel like the ones I knew I was gonna get wrong, I was cool with those because I
Mm.
knew I didn't have the answer to those. It's the
Mm.
ones I thought I had the answer to, and I got the answer wrong.
But that's why, because you thought you had the
No,
answer.
no, I agree. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I thought I had the answer,
Hmm.
and I acted on what I thought I knew,
Right.
only to discover what I thought I knew was only processing it
Partially.
from having partial of the information.
Right.
I guess I can say this right this way is that, like, I feel like sometimes I process the information so fast that I make the wrong decision because I didn't give myself time to chew on what was in front of me.
Sometimes you process things very slowly and then you miss the moment. Some things
I could get that too.
you like, ooh, just hold a while longer. And then it's like that moment is past. And that's God is a God of obedience.
I
Like if
agree.
you say move to the left, you better move to the left for that boulder come on
Yeah.
the right side of you to smash you. You got some things are take time things and some things aren't.
And
So
really being able to gauge the difference, if I could put it in test form, right?
mhm,
Um, I always did well at the test that had multiple choices,
mhm,
but three of them were obviously no's.
mhm,
Versus the test that had multiple choices, but there were two possible.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time looking at it
Overthinking.
because I'm like, it could be A, but it could be D.
But like it's one word in there that's throwing it off. So you're like,
And so you keep looking at it. And you really, if you be honest, I mean, for myself first, right? A lot of the times, the answer that I was initially going to go with first
is the right one.
was the right answer.
Yeah, but you overthink it.
I wasted all that time because I started second guessing what I know. And I feel like, again, that's kind of how we have approached life, parenting, friendships, relationships. Like, just to keep it real, like, maybe about 2 years ago, I went on this self-awareness journey, right? Like, I need to discover why or what is the reason why I say or do or react or respond to certain things. And then the journey of unpacking is when I discovered I didn't know me like I thought I knew me.
Yeah.
But it also made me realize that some of those answers, multiple choice answers that I made the wrong answer to, is because instead of listening to what I knew God was saying to me, I started questioning what God was saying to me because I was processing it against what God was saying to somebody else.
Or fear. Fear will keep you from
Fear too.
Doing it because you're always like, okay, so what will the next person think, or what would they say, or how does it make this person feel? You're processing it through that instead of the obedience of, like God said, to do this.
But
Let me
again,
pursue.
But I think for me, the fear was the fact that I got to a place where I was questioning, was it God's voice or was it Brian's?
Okay.
And when I questioned whether it was God's voice or Brian, then I would take the idea, the thought, the vision, the dream, whatever you want to call it, and I would take it to somebody and say, tell me what you think. And most times they were giving me the information based on their position, not based on what God was calling me to do.
Exactly.
And just to be honest, again, when it goes back to this concept of not understanding you have to understand that there's some things that you are purposed and assigned to do that only you are purposed and assigned to do in the area, in the culture, and in the environment you are assigned to do it. And so when you go to try to get advice from people who don't have your assignment,
they say, that's not my ministry. That's my slogan. That's not my ministry.
Or if I be honest, right, it's also like, I remember in school, we took a test and everybody's test was the same, but the answers were flipped. Yeah. So you couldn't say, what answer you got for number 2?
Yeah.
What answer you got for number 3?
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the same test. We was going to ask some of the same questions, but it wasn't the same test. Mm-hmm. And so in life, sometimes we're getting answers from people who don't have the same test. Mm-hmm. It looks the same because it's tested probably on similar information, but what I'm supposed to be doing and what you were supposed to be doing, sometimes it's not the same thing. And so this weekend was just so eye-opening for me because I remembered the why. I understood the purpose, but then it also took me back. Once I stepped on that campus and I remembered that I went to ORU because there were some things that I felt called to do that I couldn't get the answers on how to do it from the circle that I had. Mm-hmm. And so I had to surround myself with another circle, and I just felt like ORU was the place, right? And so I remember this weekend stepping on the campus and immediately, like, it was as if a refresher's course happened, and I remembered the why. But also the moment I remembered the why and I understood the season, like the motivation came back and the inspiration and the will to do and to step out came back. And it was like, okay, I have been prepared for this. It's like, even like the podcast, right? Like, I have been working with video design, multimedia, web, all of those things for years. But the ability to do what I do today has come from this season that I found myself in my life, where I was perfecting all of these different elements and aspects of myself or my gifts, right? Not understanding why, and then now to be at this place where I feel like, this won't sound crazy, but I feel like I can pass this test. I feel like I can pass this test because I understand the tools, I understand the assignment, but also I want to keep myself in position that I'm constantly being tutored or being directed to make sure that the steps that I'm making from here are the right steps. So one last thing though I want to say was, the other big thing was understanding that it wasn't too late and that I hadn't missed it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was like struggling. Like I felt like, man, I think I done sat on this thing too long. I done let each of these obstacles happen. And now this thing can't happen. But this thing happened so flawlessly. Like it happened so effortlessly that, first of all, I knew it wasn't a me thing, it was a God thing. But even bigger than that, like I realized that if it wasn't God's will and God's plan, it could have been so much more harder. But it wasn't as hard as it could have been, or in my mind, I thought it should have been, because it was orchestrated long before me.
Yeah, but we also too have to realize that when it's God's, when God says it's your time, no matter what. Like, we have to realize that it's not everything is meant to be hard. We learned that with us. Not everything is meant to be hard. We make it hard.
But not just that, right? Can I be honest? When you used to it being hard,
Yeah.
you don't know how to take the easy.
Yeah.
Like when it's just easy, you be like,
something to it.
Something
Gotta
to
be
it.
a catch.
Something's wrong.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed a step. Let me go back. Well, it's so hard to just receive it. And that's why, man, salvation is a gift.
It's not
You can't work it.
Mm-mm.
You can't barter for it. It's a gift. And you have to understand it's something that you receive.
But you know, we living in a space and in a time where so many people don't get that. And I don't know, for the life of me, I'm not gonna try to pretend like I have an answer why right here in the moment.
Right.
Because everybody's reason could be something different. But I think when you've been genuinely given a gift, you understand how gifts work. But when you haven't been given a gift, like in the physical or tangible, someone is giving you something that A, you probably couldn't do for yourself.
B, you never could repay.
And the intent was never to get anything from you. It was to do something for you.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a concept that is hard probably for some people. But I think definitely for me, it's a concept that I can connect with, right? I can vibe with, because I understand that there are things that God has done for me that I myself could have never done, came up with. I used to tell people, like, I get these witty ideas that I knew had nothing to do with me. I knew they weren't me being so, like, genius or intellectual, like I'm coming up with these ideas. That's not what it was. It was really just being in alignment with God and God giving you a gift, right? Some people's gift is singing. Some people's gift is the ability to generate wealth. My gift was vision and ideas, and I got those things so clearly. But going back to something you said earlier, but where I think, or I believe some of my flaw was God would give it to me for the season I was in, and it would take 2 seasons for me to accomplish it.
For you to birth it.
Yeah, and by the end,
It's like, Brian, that's over.
Yeah,
We're
I'm
on
past
to the
that.
next thing.
I'm on to the next thing. No,
but you know
100%.
what? I was thinking about something earlier too. I was at work when I was telling you about the what to expect when you're expecting the unexpected. I was like, Lord, because I really want to figure out my lane and what I really want to do. And he was just like, you can do whatever you want to do, but it has to be tied back to me. So not like benefiting me. I mean, it's gonna benefit me, but that's not what the purpose
Goal
has to
is.
be.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose has to be like, okay, so how are you gonna give back? Like how are you gonna help others? Like it can't be, oh, I want to be a doctor because I want to save people. No, it has to be, I want to be a doctor because I know that the gifts and talents that God has given me can help others, and I'm gonna give them everything that I've got,
I
and
feel
then
like
I'm
I
gonna
feel like
lead them back.
I feel like
To,
it's the same way with this. Like
yeah,
we're not starting this because we're trying to ride a wave and get rich.
you know,
Like we starting this because like we see a lane, we've been given vision for a space that we feel is not gonna say it is empty because there's millions of people making content, right?
right.
So I'm not saying it's empty, but just feeling like there's a perspective on it that we have been afforded the ability to have that puts us in a position to bring light to some spaces or to some things that there might not have been light on or as much light on in that space. And so here we are going to start off by dealing with the areas in our lives that we feel like we either have been misunderstood or we're processing that information from. I mean, we're going to talk about stuff like co-parenting, blended families,
Relationship.
relationships, calling,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it could go either way. No, this is not going to be your typical church channel, but at the same time, there are going to be moments where you're going to hear our faith be included in this because our faith is the binding agent that allows us to actually navigate some of the things that we've navigated and even some of the things that we will have to navigate down the road, right? And so those things will bounce around in the course of what we're talking about. But I just felt like this was a great land jumping place because even when we got ready to do this, I understood that I would be talking from a perspective of misunderstanding me at the beginning of some of this. Because I think people need to understand it's not just that we misunderstand other people, but that we misunderstand us,
Ourselves.
right? Like I knew that I was called to ministry. I knew that at a young age. Where I would say I misunderstood that is I didn't know what that was going to look like. So I found myself in a season of my life. I had dreads all the way down the lower of my back. And I loved my hair, don't get me wrong. But it wasn't until I went through a season of reflection that I realized I really started growing that hair from a place of rebellion, right? You're not going to tell me what my faith has to look like. But I stood in that place for so long that my rebellion had become my identity. And so I was like, the dread-headed guy, that's me. The skinny dread-headed guy, that's me. And even when it was time to cut it, there were 5 million questions running through my mind to the degree that I said, okay, God, if this is really what I'm supposed to do, everything is going to fall in its perfect aligned place. And sure enough, as my name is Brian, I get to the barber at 7 in the morning, figuring no barber is at the barbershop at 7 in the morning. And sure enough, the barber's in there sweeping. The place isn't open, but he in there sweeping. I go in there, I tell him what I plan on doing. I mean, immediately, he cut my hair. And I felt the relief of obedience. Places where I thought I was going to lack confidence because I was like, I've never seen myself without hair. There was a confidence there. I just think like in the course of the journey of discovering me, I discovered that there were some things that I had picked up that weren't even for me.
That didn't belong to you.
That didn't even belong to me. And I think about that not just in the sense of hair. How many people we've encountered that are carrying somebody else's trauma through association, carrying somebody else's lack of love for themselves through association. And so I was like, okay, I need to work on me. So the first thing I did was I went and got me a meeting with a therapist. It's like, Not because I was crazy or 'cause something was wrong, but I am getting ready to embark on unpacking an aspect of my life that I am chartering unfamiliar territory. And so in this season, while God is my spiritual guide and direction, I needed a natural guide, somebody to say, okay, Brian, here's your assignment for today. Go do these things. Here's your assignment for today. Go do these things. And as I did those things both revealed and removed, shedded. And I became more confident, more free, to the degree like I was shouting from the rooftops, hey, y'all, I got a therapist. And some of my partners was like,
unashamed.
yeah. And some of my partners was like, why you keep saying that? Man, look, I'm telling you, best decision I ever made. But it was because I felt the freedom and the wholeness and the deliverance in that space. I felt myself coming back into tune with who I saw myself being even in my young age, right? And so I tell people all the time, there's some things that you're going to navigate in life that you're going to need some help navigating because you've never navigated those things.
Facts. I was thinking about when you said some things that have attached to you that don't even belong to you. When you begin to understand, I was telling one of the girls at work, when you begin to understand why a person responds a certain way, because you're listening to them and their backstory and what they've been through, they're responding through their experience. So that's the filter they're seeing what you're saying come through. It has nothing to do with you personally. And if we can sit down and have those type of conversations with people so that you can understand where they're coming from, then you can decipher which piece is for you and which piece isn't. Like, someone may come off judgmental, but it's not because of anything that you've done. It's because the life that they've experienced, the trauma that they experienced. Man, people will have to understand that you can only speak through the filter. You can only speak through that filter that you have until you sit down and really get to know somebody and really get to see
Facts, agree.
what's going on. Because my first opinion of you is only...
And it makes me think of, like, this weekend, one of the things that after the award ceremony and everything, I had a chance to just kind of chop it up with Samson. And while me and him was talking, one of the things he said was that so often people don't tune in to a person and listen enough to learn. They're always listening to kind of respond or to have something to say. And communication requires both the ability to speak well, but also the ability to listen well. And I mean, as I thought about that, that doesn't just correlate to people. Like, that also correlates to myself. Like, there's some things that I need to listen to well just as much as I talk well, right? And even when engaging with other people, sometimes the reason that we hurt people who are already hurting is because we don't listen with the intent to understand and gain information from the individual. We listen, and like you just said a few minutes ago, we process that through our experiences, and then we respond out of that experience. And sometimes that response is from again, shameless plug, but from a position of misunderstanding. Oh, I responded to them, but I really responded to them not from what they were trying to tell me. Because sometimes people tell you, I did this, this, and this, and I was wrong for doing it. And then because you're not listening and hearing what they say, you immediately in response come back, yeah, and you shouldn't have done this, and you shouldn't have done that. They just said, I shouldn't have done these things. So they don't really need
a double dose
of, yeah, you shouldn't have done that.
of bearing down.
Yeah,
I got it.
I got that part.
I wasn't supposed to do it. I understand.
And some of the things that I'm experiencing in my life is paying the price for the fact that I shouldn't have done it. I'm learning that lesson.
Yeah.
I don't need you to beat me with it.
Yeah.
I need you to really just listen to me, say it, and then sometimes encourage me through it.
Right. And sometimes say nothing.
That part.
Like, shut up.
If God ain't gave you nothing to say, sometimes that's because you ain't got nothing you need to be saying.
I'm like, I understand, brother.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel that.
Oof, I've been there. And keep it pushing. That's it. You ain't got to say, hey, now don't do that no more. Like that, I told you that 5 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
I told you I'm not in that same cycle. Now you trying to remind me. Don't try to remind me of who I've been delivered from. Okay, that's one thing that I don't like that people do is they'll try to hold you to who you used to be. Don't hold me to who I used to be. I don't receive mail there no more. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have been delivered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
I have moved on. I remember that attitude you had the other day, girl. It was over with then. And I'm anew now, okay?
And I'm again, when I say can relate to that, right? There's some things in your life you get rid of that you don't really want to let go of. And then there's some things you get rid of in your life that if you just be real with you really wanted them gone anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Didn't nobody need to tell you wanted them gone, you just know how to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and in the process, again, for me, in the process of healing, those are some things that I grew to understand. Was like, okay, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be those things. But sometimes when you're in the moment and the wheel and the ball is turning, right, you don't know how to pull the reins back. So you are that person in the moment. But then you can you can position yourself to slow life down just enough that you can say, okay, these things I no longer want in my life. These things I need to heal in areas of my life. And now I've slowed my life down enough to heal.
Or you removed enough people.
That part too. Yeah, 100%.
Sometimes in order to not be that person, you have to stop hanging around people that provoke you to be that person.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it's okay. I used to think that was wrong.
No, it's not.
No, I did. I used to think it was wrong to say, you know what? I'll come to a place in my life where this relationship serves me no more.
Yeah.
Because then I felt like, oh, well, I was only using you.
No.
But the reality is that's not the case. The case is just I've grown. You can't get me. You can't have, like, for example, you got a nice pair of shoes. They fit good and they go well with your outfit.
But they're a size 6.
And your feet have grown. Right? It's not that I no longer care for those shoes or I don't desire those shoes. Those shoes just no longer fit where I am in this season of my life. And there are some relationships that fall in that same category.
Yeah.
They just no longer fit where I am in this season of my life. And let me say this too, because I don't want nobody to take what we saying the wrong way and get out there be telling you no longer fit me. No. It doesn't mean that those people are bad people.
They're not.
It just means that those people don't fit
in my season.
In this season of my life.
That's it. And they're I'm telling you, I have some relationships that they were great people doing great things, but my life just wasn't headed in that direction. And I mean, I wish them the best, and some of them are doing amazing things, but my life was just not heading there. And so I just had to go my way and, still support them and what they're doing by, giving them
sharing it on sharing their post or commenting under the bottom, you doing that.
Me, the personal relationship that we had, but the season is over. It's over.
And it's okay. It's okay to say that season is over.
Season over.
Right? And I don't know. That's where I feel like, I guess, in one season of my life, it was hard because I feel like my healing was hurting other people. And that's when I realized, okay, it's time for me to adjust relationships. Not because those people are bad or wrong for me or any of those things. It's because the process that I had to go through to heal could look different ways to different folks. And when God said, okay, it's time to let that thing go, sometimes it's not because that thing is wrong for you. Sometimes it's because the journey you getting ready to take could hurt that person. And so I need to sever ties and cut situations there because I'm trying to do something over there just like I'm trying to do something over here. And I need to shift you because I don't want you to damage what I'm doing over there because the shift that I'm doing in y'all independent lives could create conflict in the collective life. And so I need you to let that go.
But sometimes too, even if you let that situation go then for that season, it might be another season where y'all are like
Yeah, exactly.
100% back on again because like you have to realize that okay, this is a season like, God is with me and I got to, handle this situation and these people can't be with me in this season. But then, okay, they might be going through another season themselves, you know what I'm saying? To mature them in a certain way or whatever the case may be, or they might be headed off into a venture. And then, 2-3 years down the lane, now we're both back on the same kind of thing. And it's like, okay, now we meeting back up like it was 3-4 years ago. And doing the things that we need to do because our life, like like you said earlier, the same type of test but different answer keys. Because okay, you might be on step 3, but I'm on step 6. So then, your next step, when you get to step 6, I might still be at step 6. And we can collide and do the things that we need to do together. But then, that's just how life goes sometimes. There's people that are in a cycle of seasons with you, and there's some that are not. Some are, like
For a moment.
for a moment,
Yeah.
and some are a lifetime.
Yeah.
But it's not as thick as it was at one point in time. You know what I'm saying?
And I think I could tell you, I know for certain that I have relationships like that. I have a relationship whose name I'm gonna leave anonymous because if I said his name, I'd have to beat him up. Okay, but when I say our friendship has been the long strand, not the short strand,
Yeah.
right? Like it has been the ups, the
The peaks and
downs.
the valleys.
Yeah, it's been all of that.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a season where I felt like God was like, okay, you need to cut that, right? It was like, okay, in one season I was learning off of him, in another season he was learning off of me. There was seasons when we didn't talk as much, but it was because if I be honest, isolation is a part of growth.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's uncomfortable, it hurts, but sometimes you have to isolate to create silence so that you can hear God, but so that you can also know what is a distraction that needs to be removed and what can stay. And so isolation is okay. And for me, that was hard because I used relationships and people to keep me busy, to keep me from being isolated, because in my mind, being busy was being productive. When the reality was the entire time that I was busy, I was just busy. It's like if it's harvest season, if it's planting season and you busy, but your busy didn't get no seed in the ground. Then when it's harvest season, you don't get to say during harvest season, I was busy, I ought to get some fruit. I was busy, I ought to have some oranges or some apples. No, you don't get to have those things because you were the wrong kind of busy.
Right.
And so for me, again, learning my flaws, my hangups, and not only because some of us only want to pay attention to the things we do well.
That part.
Right? It's like in basketball. If all you can do is dribble the ball well, that's like a fourth of the battle.
That's great, but
that's not getting no buckets. You're not scoring no points.
Right.
You got to be able to shoot. You got to be able to lay up. You got to
at least try to shoot.
Right? Like when I used to play basketball with my friends, like just out in the neighborhood, one of the things they used to say, you like dribbling. I learned how to dribble between my legs and dribble around my back. But boy, I go to shooting that ball and I was like,
trash.
Yes. Trash.
Dumpster juice.
You hear me? Like, oh no, B, you gotta work on that. You got at least you tall, at least be able to lay the ball up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, you can't only work on the things that you do well. You continue to nurture those things because you don't want the things you do well to become the things you do bad.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you want to develop in the sense that I'm I'm good at the things that I do well, and I've become better at the things that I do bad. Right. And the way to do that sometimes.
Great, good, and better.
Mm-hmm. And so I think like this is a good stopping point for us. But I want to say that we're going to be doing more of this. It'll be more of us just talking through the day to day of things that we've witnessed that we were like, I could have done that better. Right. I misunderstood this person, or I misunderstood this situation, or, I was telling somebody just the other day as I was talking to him, I said, one of the things that I think we often misunderstand, and many of us have done it, if not all of us, is drive through cities or towns and see homeless people and immediately say to ourselves within our minds, we may never say it with our mouths, but we say in our heads, man, what did they do to be homeless? What did they do to be in that position? And sometimes they didn't do anything. Sometimes they're in a season just like you were in a season, and their season just looks a little different than yours. But we've heard numerous of stories of people being homeless and go on to be millionaires, start businesses, become leading employees at companies. Why? Because even in their homelessness, it was a season. And people misunderstood and mishandled and misjudged them because of their season. And I want to become better at not mishandling people in their seasons. And the way to do that is to have the hard conversations around people we might not understand. Well, guys, it was good. I hope that you enjoyed the content. I am definitely going to down below somewhere, put somewhere where you can subscribe, share, like our content. We're a work in progress, and I've had to accept that it's not going to be, you know what I mean, Tyler Perry Studios overnight. That is going to take some work. But I believe that we are the perfect team for this. I enjoy her. She enjoys me. We have great conversations, and really, this is just letting you into some of the things we talk about. See you later.
Peace.